What's going on, everybody? We are back here in some more Need for Speed Payback. So, I've been thinking about this for quite a few years now. This came from possibly Need for Speed Unbound, or the classic Need for Speed 2005 Most Wanted, and a couple of other cars. But everybody has talked about um, hero cars and all of that sort of stuff. But nobody ever talks about like maybe a champion's car. Um, which leads, if you play the Need for Speed Unbound, you build a car at the beginning of the story, is ends up to getting taken and blah blah blah, and at the end of some big race, you get the car back, and it's a, a fast, cool looking livery car and everything like that. So I did a little bit of research recently, talking about what would be what would Tyler Morgan's car be after Outlaws Rush. You go through, you race all these cars. Some people say it's maybe like his Nissan Skyline, which is Tyler's hero car in this, the R34. Some other people talk about um, maybe a high performance exotic car, hypercar, or something like that. But I don't think that's I don't think that's very accurate. So first of all, we have to kind of take a look at each character, because each character actually tells a bit of a story about what kind of cars they're into. So, starting with Jessica. Jessica always talks about European compact cars, cars like Audi, BMW, um, Fiat, or any type of European car, which is really good for rental cars. I've noticed Alfa Romero and all those cars. For Mac, he does off road drifting. I feel like for Mac's off road, you can have that Bel Air from the beginning of the story, because you don't exactly know what happens to the car after everything happens. Um, but it shows up at the end of the game, at the end scenes. Um, After Outlaws Rush, you see Mac with the car, and so it's still around. So I feel like that Max still has that car. But I also do feel like that the cars that the heist cars that you get, the gold plated cars, are also in Tyler and Max um, catalog, uh, which the Lamborghini Aventador, um, being rebuilt. I feel like that could have been like a maybe a matinee gray, matinee black, just to act like it's they scraped off the gold plating and repainted it like a primer paint or something like that, which I feel like would have been pretty good. And I feel like the Land Rover that Matt gets, I feel like that he also scrapes off, because in the story he talks about that he's going to scrape off the gold plating and put his own little his Shazam on it. And I feel like for Mac, I feel like that would have been maybe the classic, green and tan sort of colors for a Land Rover, similar to the car that you see in the Crew Motorfest and the Crew 2, that Land Rover. So I feel like that car fits Mac pretty well for an off-road car. For Mac's drift car, I feel like Mac's drift car um, could be the 65 Mustang, because in the story, Max talks about his father having a 1965 cherry red Mustang. And funny enough, the Mustang is a cherry red, but also has super builds, which you can turn it into a drift super build for that car. And for Tyler's drag car, I feel like the Fair Lady Z, the older model could be his drag car, because also the Fair Lady Z is a deer-like car, and um, you have a super build for the drag car, which I feel like is um, pretty canon if you actually do the deer lake, because the Fair Lady Z is actually one of the first deer lakes you get. You turn it into a super build, um, aside with from a car that Tyler had to buy for the first crew right club, and what else? Oh yeah, and surprisingly, towards the beginning of the game, after all that stuff with this crew goes down, when Tyler's working with the gambler, he drives that crappy little fair lady. So, and we don't ever know what happened to that car after he gets inducted into the house with that BMW. So I feel like that could have been Tyler's drag car. Um, Actually, in the end game stuff, especially when you're doing auto logs and whatnot. But the one thing that I would say is, what would be Tyler's end game race car, in his race class? Um, we know that he's had the R34 GTR, but in the story, after he gets caught by the gambler, he leaves his car there. So you don't know what happens to his car, especially that car, because that car was, it was a special addition to the story, and we only drove it in the beginning of the game. So, and then we don't know what happens to it after he starts working with the gambler. It could have been impounded, or it could have been taken to a chop shop. So, um, after that time, Tyler loses his R34. So that car is out of the picture at that time. So I feel like, um, for an upgraded car for Tyler, which I do believe could be the GTR. I don't specifically believe that it could be like some sort of like a red GTR, the same style as Tyler's R34, but I do feel like that this car could have a livery. In the game, a lot of the racers have these flashy liveries and everything like that. So I do feel like that this car could do with a really decent car design, uh, in the style of all of the other racers in Fortune Valley. So, and the colors that I could mostly use would be orange and red, mostly because Tyler, he um, he corresponds himself with red, but also with Outlaws Rush, or desert themes tend to be orange, and everybody um, has explained that the outlaw parts, performance parts in this game, tend to be the best in the game. So I do feel like orange and red will be um, a really decent color scheme for you know Tyler's champion car, not his hero car, a champion car. And it goes back to Need for Speed Payback, or not Payback, Pro Street. After you beat um, all the class kings and everything like that, you get their cars, and they're all these really high performance customized cars and all of that sort of stuff. And aside from doing the Outlaws Rush, you still have a lot of end game stuff to do, especially running racers, um, auto logs, and even the fact of Mac having a DLC for Speedcross, which we're going to be doing here uh, in the next couple of days, I'd say. So there's still a couple of things that I have to do in the story, but the main story is done, and we just have some DLC and all that sort of stuff, and some end game stuff that we have to do. And so I do feel like that, a champion's car, I do feel like it's would be like some sort of race livery for Tyler, and correlation to him being the winner of Outlaws Rush. So why I uploaded this video, or well, why I'm making this video, is because I'm going to design a car for Tyler. Um, I'm going to design the livery myself. Um, I'm going to make it how I would envision something Tyler driving. So um, I'm gonna end up doing that at a later time. But yeah, um, I'm going to design a car for Tyler, and I'm going to use orange, red. I'm in the new geometric style that I've been getting into. So yeah, I'm going to end up designing a car for him that I feel like would have something that he would have drove in in the setting of Need for Speed Payback with these cars having all these flashy liveries on them. So and something that I feel like Tyler would have drove. So yeah, I just wanted to throw this up real quick. You guys actually might see the car the before after here on the screen right now, and then I might just go ahead and just add another portion of the car um, that's completely finished. The final version of the car I think Tyler would have drove after Outlaws Rush, his his end game champions car. So yeah, um, I think that's about it. You guys might see the second snippet for the car and all that sort of stuff. So yeah. If you guys like this sort of content, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.